Do you have a crochet hook that you're starting to learn how to use? Do you have a ball of lightweight yarn like an 8-ply, DK or light worsted? Do you have a cold head? Stick around and I'll show you how to make my soft and simple slouchy. My soft and simple slouchy is a beginner-friendly pattern. I work in US stitch terms and you need to use a lightweight yarn like an 8-ply, DK or light worsted, as that's why this hat's so lovely and soft. We're going to start at the top and work down in a continuous round so the hat will be seamless. When we get to the band, we bring it in a little bit at the back so it sits better on your head, and we'll work the band stitches in the back loop to give this lovely ridged effect. I have put a button on my beanie. Not only is it cute, it's functional. It helps you to find the front when you're putting it on. As well as your yarn, you're going to need a couple of crochet hooks, a 5mm crochet hook and a 4mm crochet hook. Your yarn label probably says you should use a 4mm, but I really want you to use the 5 for the bulk of the work, as that's what makes this hat so soft. You'll also need a pair of scissors for cutting stuff, a couple of stitch markers or a couple of safety pins, a darning needle, and the optional extra is one pretty button. Grab that 5mm hook and your yarn, and just quickly, if you would like to jump ahead at any point, you'll see in the top left corner I've popped instructions for the pattern. So if you would like to start by making a magic circle, you can do that and meet me at the beginning of round 1. Otherwise, as this is a beginner's pattern, I'm going to be using a slip knot. So give yourself a decent tail. This is the tail end, and this is the working end, which is attached to the ball of yarn. Take the tail end and wrap it over your finger and over the top of the working yarn. Hold it in place. Take that working end and bring it over the top of your finger. Hold it in place. Take this, lift it up, pop it over the top of your finger, tighten it up. Pop your hook in there and we're ready to go. We are going to begin by chaining 4. So yarn over and pull through 1. Yarn over and pull through 2. Yarn over and pull through 3. Yarn over, pull through, that is 4. Going to take this little chain 4 and turn it into a circle. So to do that, I'd like you to pop your hook in the first chain, which is the one right next to your slip knot. Insert your hook and you only need to catch one loop of that chain, so it should be nice and easy. And now you've got 2 loops on your hook and you need to yarn over and pull through both of those loops. And that is called a slip stitch, and you have made a teeny tiny circle. All right, all of the stitches in round 1 are going to be placed into the center of that circle. So take a moment to find the center of it properly. Make sure you're not confusing it with one of these stitches, which can gape a bit. And round 1 begins with a chain 1, which does not count as a stitch. We're going to put 10 half double crochets into the center of our circle, and that is a half double crochet in US stitch terms. So yarn over, insert your hook into the center of that circle, yarn over and pull up a loop. You'll have 3 loops on your hook, and you need to then yarn over and go through 1, 2, 3 loops, and you have a half double crochet. Take a moment, not just to admire your beautiful half double crochet, but to pop a stitch marker into the top of it. Now at the top of your half double crochet is this little V shape, and I really want you to pop the stitch marker in it so that when you start round 2 you don't get this little V shape at the top of your half double crochet mixed up with this strikingly similar little V shape, which is your chain 1. All right, let's do 9 more half double crochets, and as we're working around, if you can, try to catch this tail of your yarn up in your stitches, wrap them around it to hold it in place. If you can't manage it, it really isn't a big deal because we'll need to weave the tail in at the end of the beanie anyway. So yarn over insert your hook, yarn over and pull up a loop, 3 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull through all 3. You would have noticed with my first stitch, I did my loops one at a time, so if you can't get through all 3 loops at once, it's not a big deal. By the end of this hat though, I reckon you'll be able to do it. Yarn over, insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through all 3. That's 3 half double crochets. Yarn over, insert your hook, yarn over and pull up a loop, 3 loops, yarn over, pull through all 3, 4 half double crochets, yarn over, insert your hook, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through all 3. 1, 2, 3. That's 5 half double crochets. We're halfway there. Well, halfway through round 1. Yarn over and insert your hook, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through all 3 for 6. Yarn over, insert your hook, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through all 3. Yarn over, insert your hook, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through all 3. Yarn over, insert your hook, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through all 3. And now for our 10th half double crochet, yarn over, insert your hook, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through all 3. Now I really recommend you count your stitches, particularly for these first rounds. So count your stitches and count these little V shapes. We'll start with the one that our stitch marker is through. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. That is the end of round 1, and we're going to begin round 2. So take your stitch marker out at this point. Have a good look at where it's coming from, because that is where we're going to put our hook. We're going to put a half double crochet straight into that stitch. So yarn over, insert your hook so that you catch both loops of that stitch. Yarn over, pull up a loop. You've now got 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over, pull through those 3 loops. Now take your stitch marker, pop it in the top of that half double crochet so that you'll be able to find the beginning of your round. This hat is worked in continuous rounds, which is why you need the stitch markers, so that you always remember where the first stitch of your round is. And the pattern repeat for round 2 is to put 2 half double crochets into each of the half double crochets in the round below. So at the end of the round we will have 20 stitches. So we're going to yarn over and insert the hook into the same stitch that we just went into. I'm going to catch both loops of the V so that we have 1, 2 loops and the V on our hook before we yarn over and pull up a loop. You've now got 3 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull through all 3. So the only difference from round 1 is that we're working into stitches instead of into the circle space. So yarn over, insert into the next stitch. You've got 1 loop, 2 loop and the V on your hook. Yarn over and pull up a loop. 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over and pull through all 3. So we need to put a second stitch into that spot, as we're going to put 2 stitches into each of the stitches, 2 half double crochets into each of the stitches. So I'll do one more with you. So yarn over and insert. Got 1 loop, 2 loop, and the stitch on our hook. Yarn over, pull up a loop, 3 loops on the hook, yarn over and pull through all 3. Okay, I'm going to put another stitch into that same spot. And if you could pause the video at this point and meet me when you hit that stitch marker. I've reached the stitch marker, which means it's time to start round 3. So take that stitch marker out, but do not lose it because we'll be putting it in again in just a moment. The first stitch in round 3 goes right where the stitch marker was, and it's another half double crochet. Yarn over and insert your hook. Yarn over and pull up a loop, so there's 3 loops on the hook. Yarn over and pull through all 3. And I bet you don't need me to walk you through a half double crochet anymore. I bet you're getting the hang of them. We're going to pop the stitch marker into the top of that first half double crochet so that we'll know where round 3 comes to an end. Okay, now the pattern for round 3 is going to see us increase every second stitch. So this stitch here, we're going to put 2 half double crochets into it. We put 1 half double crochet in the first stitch. We're going to put 2 in the second stitch. And that's how we're going to go around the circle. We're going to put 2 half double crochets in every second stitch. So pause the video here and I will meet you at the beginning of round 4. So on to round 4. Round 4 is another increase row, which means we're going to be popping some extra stitches in. Our first one though is just a half double crochet in that first stitch. And we're going to put a stitch marker in to help us keep track. Okay, so the pattern repeat for this round is a half double crochet in the first 2 stitches and then 2 half double crochets in the next. Half double crochet in the first 2 stitches or the next 2 stitches, 2 half double crochets in the next. And so at the end of this round we will have 40 stitches in our circle. So 2 half double crochets in that spot, 1 half double crochet there, 1 half double crochet there, and 2 half double crochets in this one. All right, so just keep doing that all the way around until you get back to your stitch marker, and I will meet you there. So here we are at the end of round 4, and hopefully you have a lovely little circle. And hopefully you're starting to feel like this isn't too hard, that you're doing the same thing every round and it's pretty neat. You're getting the hang of the stitch. All right, so we'll take the stitch marker out again and we will start round 5. Round 5 is not an increase round. You're going to love it. You don't have to count. You just have to put 1 stitch in every stitch all the way around. So at the end of this round, you are going to have 40 stitches, which makes sense because round 4 had 40 stitches. But do make sure you put your stitch marker in so that you don't lose track of where you're at. Okay, here we are at the end of round 5. And like round 4, we have 40 stitches, but you'll notice it's starting to curl up. Sorry, drop the scissors, they're a bit in the way. See, getting a little curl, which is good because you want it to sit on your head. Okay, I'm going to just show you something now briefly that I wish someone had shown me when I was making my first hat. So don't you go snipping your yarn, but I'm going to snip mine and show you how to deal with your yarn coming to the end partway through your hat. So yarn, particularly cheap yarn, often has breaks that are just tied together, and Sometimes you can trust that little knot, sometimes you can't, but I do not like to trust it in a hat, particularly because I think it's a little bit bumpy and unpleasant. I'd like to have my hat be super soft and comfortable. So what to do? Basically, you want to leave a reasonable tail. I always think you should have a reasonable amount to tie in. That's probably more than we need, but you know, maybe sort of that much. And what you do is you start your stitch with the yarn that you've got, you yarn over and insert your hook, you yarn over and you pull up a loop. So you're at the point where you have 3 loops on your hook. And now drop that yarn. Don't want it, done with it. And now pick up your other piece of yarn. Sorry, oh, made a mess of that. All right, so pick up your other piece of yarn and you want to make a loop, which just means fold it in half. You're not tying it, you're not doing anything. You're just sort of folding it in half so that you can grab a piece of it with your crochet hook. And then you're finishing the stitch off with it. You're pulling it through those 3 loops. So I'll show you that again. Oh no, my yarn comes to an end. What will I do? Start your stitch, yarn over, insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop. Throw away that old yarn, pick up that new yarn, fold it over so that you have a little loop, pop that little loop onto your hook and slip it through. And now you basically just keep going. What you probably want to do is take this bit that's running out and kind of work your stitches over it for a bit, and equally take the little loose tail of the new one and do the same. So for a while you're going to be kind of holding those bits of yarn in place and working your stitches over the top of them. Now in the long run that is not going to be enough to keep them in place. You are actually going to have to sort of sew those ends in a bit. But when we get to the end of the beanie, I will show you how to do that so that your hat will definitely not fall apart, which is what you really, really wouldn't want. And it's probably what you're scared of when you're starting. So yarn over, insert the hook, and it's going under both loops of the stitch. It's also going under those 2 free bits of yarn. And then I'm pulling up a loop, which then kind of catches them. See, they're now in the little tunnel. Yarn over, pull through. So we're going to start round 6 we're up to, aren't we? Yes. I'm asking the camera. Luckily the camera's not answering, otherwise I'd have to worry. Okay, this is an increase round again. So we're going to yarn over, insert. I'm catching all of those extra bits of yarn. I'll pop my stitch marker on so I do not forget where the beginning of my round is. I wish I had some of those little stitch markers that you just slipped on. I keep intending to buy them, but I guess it's better than a safety pin, which is what I started with. Okay, so the pattern increase for this round is 3 and then 2. So that is 3. You're going to put a single, you're going to put a half double crochet in 3 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, and then in the 4th stitch, you're going to put 2 half double crochets. And at the end of this round, we are going to have 50 stitches. So I'll just show you at what point I'm going to drop the yarn that I'm carrying at the back here as well. So that's my 2nd stitch in this row, 3rd stitch in this row, and then I'm going to increase. So 2 stitches in this next one. 1, 2. I think that's enough. I'm going to drop those now, pop them out the back so they're out of my way. Probably gave myself a bit more of a tail than I needed there, so it's a little bit of a mess. But they'll be okay. They'll just sit down there. And when we finish the hat, I'll show you how to tie those ends in properly. All right, so I'll leave you to do this round. So it is half double crochet, half double crochet, half double crochet, 2 half double crochets, and you will take the stitch count up to 50 by the time you're at the end of this round. Pause the video and I'll see you at the end of the round. Time for round 7. Round 7, we're going to take the stitch count up to 60. To do that, we'll put 1 half double crochet in each stitch for 4 stitches, and then 2 half double crochets in every 5th stitch the whole way around. So pause the video here, do that, and meet me for the beginning of the next round. All right, I have just finished round 7 and I have 60 stitches. Yay, I have a circle. I hope you have a circle too. We're going to start bringing that circle in a little bit more by adding another shaping round, which means an easy round where you just get to put 1 stitch in each stitch below. The only thing you have to be careful not to do is not to forget to put your stitch marker in at the beginning of the round so you don't get lost. So pause your video, keep stitching, and I will meet you when you hit the stitch marker. So that's the end of round 8. We've got 60 stitches at the moment. Round 9, we are going to increase up to 70. At this point, you should really be noticing that your hat has got a bit of a curve to it. It's not looking like a plate. It's looking like the top of a hat. So our next round is going to make it a little bit bigger to fit your head, and we're going to take it up to 70 stitches. We're going to do that by putting 1 half double crochet in each stitch for 5 stitches, and then 2 half double crochets in the next one. So be particularly careful with these rows that begin after a shaping round with no increases, that you don't forget to put your stitch marker in your first stitch. Otherwise it's really difficult to find where your first stitch is if you've lost count. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then increase. Okay, I'll leave you to it. I'll meet you when you get to the stitch marker and let you know what we're going to do for round 10. Here we are at the end of round 9 and we're up to 70 stitches. We're going to go into round 10 now. Round 10 we are going to increase up to 80 stitches, which we will do by putting an extra half double crochet into every 7th stitch. So that's 6 stitches with 1 half double crochet, and the 7th stitch with 2, and then repeat all the way around until you hit your stitch marker. Actually, I have to put the stitch in before I can put the stitch marker in. Okay, so stitch marker in, and off we go. And 80 stitches. Oh, congratulations. This was the last increase round of your hat. So, because I know that this circle can look deceptively small and you might be thinking there is no way this hat is going to be big enough, I'll show you how big it should be. 3.5 inches. Helps if I put the tape measure on the screen. And that is about 9 centimeters. From here, For rounds 11 through to 22, you're going to just work around the circle, putting 1 half double crochet into each stitch. I'd like you to keep your stitch marker going because that will help you to count your rounds. I'm going to pop back and show you what your hat looks like at the partway point, because again, I know that when you're first making a slouchy, you can start thinking, oh my goodness, what am I making? Is this a fez? Is it going to turn out all right? Am I spending all my time making something that's going to be hideous? So yeah, I'll pop back and show you what it looks like on my head to give you a point of comparison. I've just finished round 15. Seven rounds to go. Last stitch in round 22. Yay! Okay, pull up a big loop, take your hook out, and let's see how this hat is sitting. All right, so this is nice and loose on me. I want you to put it on your head and imagine that it's got a band, because the band is going to be about a couple of centimeters. So I'm putting it a little bit further back on my head and I'm checking where it's sitting at the back. That's about how much slouch I like for my hats. So if you want more slouch than you've got, just add a couple more rounds. Otherwise, I will show you how to put the band on to bring it in. At this point too, if yours is nice and loose like mine is, this is the point I want you to change to your 4mm hook. But if it's reasonably tight, you can stick with a 5mm hook. Okay, let's have a look at the band stitches. You're going to need a second stitch marker to do your brim. We're going to start by counting back 10 stitches. And remember, we count the stitches with these little V's. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Pop my stitch marker in there. I also want to keep track of where the beginning of the round is. So that's why I needed you to have 2 stitch markers. We're going to use a different stitch for the brim. We're going to use a single crochet. Single crochets are a little bit of a tighter stitch than a half double crochet. And the other thing we're going to do is make the stitch in the back loop, which will, as well as the single crochet being tighter, putting it in the back loop will bring the hat in and make the band sit more snugly. So to work in the back loop, okay, we have been doing this. We've been going under the whole stitch and catching both parts of the V. But from now on, for all of the rest of our stitches in this hat, we're going to go down into the middle of the stitch and just catch the back loop. It's actually quite easy. You just sort of poke the hook in there and grab one loop. And a single crochet, unlike a half double crochet, you don't yarn over. You just poke before you make the stitch. You just put your hook in, then you yarn over and you pull up a loop. So you have 1, 2 loops on your hook. You yarn over and pull through both those loops. I'm going to pop my my stitch marker into the top of that so that I remember where the beginning of my round is. Okay, so far we've done 1 single crochet. The next stitch in this round is what's called a single crochet decrease. It's part of the way we're going to shape the hat a little bit and make it sit a bit better on your head. So to do a single crochet decrease, we're basically going to make a single crochet over 2 stitches so that in the round above, those 2 stitches will have turned into 1. To do that, we insert the hook into that first stitch, we yarn over and pull up a loop. Pop your finger on that loop to keep it in place because we're now going to put the hook into the next stitch. Going to yarn over, we're going to pull up another loop. You've now got 3 loops on your hook. yarn over and go through all 3. Remember, you don't have to get all 3 at once. You can do one at a time. Okay, so that is a single crochet back loop decrease. Well done. Don't worry, I'm going to show you how to do it again in just a moment. We're now going to do 2 single crochets for the next 2 stitches. So insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through those 2 loops. Into the next stitch, we're doing another single crochet. So insert and just catch that back loop, yarn over, pull up a loop, 2 loops on the hook, yarn over, pull through both of them. Okay, for our next stitch, we're going to do another decrease. So I'll walk you through it again nice and slowly. Insert your hook into the first stitch, just catching that back loop, yarn over, pull up a loop. Pop your finger on top of that to hold it in place before going back into the next stitch, yarning over again and pulling up a loop. You now have 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. Well done. We're going to, in the next stitch, just put a single crochet. So insert your hook, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through both loops on the hook. The next stitch, it's another single crochet. Insert your hook, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. Our next stitch is a single crochet decrease. I'll walk you through it one more time. Insert your hook, pull up a loop. Insert your hook into the next stitch, pull up another loop, yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. That is the last decrease until we get back around to the stitch marker. So I just need you to put 1 single crochet in each stitch until you reach the stitch marker. I will meet you back there and show you what to do from that point. So pause the video and work your way around with single crochets until you hit your stitch marker. I've almost reached my stitch marker. Just wanted to show you how much my stitches are gaping, just so you know that that's normal when it happens to yours. Back loop stitches do seem to gape a bit more, but it will look normal when it's finished. See, the ones back here are pulled back together, but the one I've just done looks really big. Okay, so I've reached the stitch marker, and that is there to tell me to put in a decrease. So just like before, insert your hook, pull up a loop, go into the next stitch, pull up a loop again. You've got 3 on your hook, you yarn over and pull through all 3. And now I'll get you to pop your stitch marker in there. Okay, now we're going to do 2 single crochets. 1 in this stitch and 1 in the next stitch, just there. Our next stitch is a decrease. So insert your hook, pull up a loop, go into the next stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. Now we're going to do 2 single crochets. 1 here and 1 in the next stitch. And 1 more decrease. Insert your hook and pull up a loop, and then insert your hook into the next stitch and pull up another loop, yarn over and pull through those 3 loops. And that is the end of the first round of our brim, which for me was round 23, and now we're going to go into round 24. Round 24 starts with a back loop single crochet, again I'm going to pop the stitch marker in, and the second stitch in round 24 is a decrease. You should be getting pretty good at these by now. Insert your hook, pull up a loop, insert your hook into the next stitch, pull up another loop, yarn over and pull through all three. Now you might notice, it might be a little bit hard to see, but that decrease is right on top of the decrease from the round below. So our next stitch is a single crochet, and the one after that is a single crochet decrease, and again that's right above the decrease in the round below. So insert your hook, pull up a loop, go into the next stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through all three. One more single crochet and one more decrease. Again, it's on top of the decrease from the round below. And now I just want you to put a single crochet in the back loop of every stitch until you get back to our stitch marker here. I will meet you there to show you what we do. I've reached that stitch marker, and so as you've probably guessed, that means it's time to put in a decrease. You'll be pleased to know though that you don't need this stitch marker anymore. Fling! Okay, so pop a decrease in there over those two stitches, and then a normal back loop single crochet in the next stitch, then another decrease over those two stitches. Single crochet in the next one, and then the last decrease for the hat, which is going to take us over the stitch that the stitch marker is in, so you'll need to take out that stitch marker. Don't fling it though. And hooray, that is the last decrease for the hat. Do still need to put your stitch marker in there to help you keep track of your rounds. But from here, I just want you to put one single crochet in the back loop of every stitch for 2 rounds. And if you pause the video, I'll meet you there and show you how to finish off your hat. There we are, the last stitch. So take out that stitch marker for one last time. Goodbye stitch marker. And we're going to slip stitch to the top of this stitch. Just move the back of the beanie out of the way a bit better so you can see it a little bit better. Okay, so insert your hook under both loops of that stitch, yarn over and pull through, and then I want you to pull through again to make a slip stitch. Okay, the last thing we're going to do to finish off is to chain, so that's just yarn over and pull through. Get out your scissors and snip your yarn. Ooh, I did that off camera, sorry, but we've got about a tail of about that much there, which is plenty. Okay, so now we just need to gently pull up. I like that bit, find it very satisfying, and tug slightly on that yarn to tighten it up. Now you'll need your darning needle. so that we can weave all these ends in. Now, weaving in the ends is not rocket science, but if you haven't done it before, it kind of sucks when a video ends with, and now weave in your ends. So I'm actually going to weave in my ends. You'll need to turn your hat inside out, and the outside is the side with this nice rib detail on the band. The inside is the side with all the loose ends. So, inside out hat. And this is our tail end that we need to weave in. So thread your needle. So basically I like to take my yarn up and back twice, and that secures it nicely. So try to stay kind of inside the stitches, try not to split the yarn, but if you do, it's not a big deal. So I'm just popping my needle in to that stitch next to it, next to where I finished, taking it up through a few stitches. There we are. Oh, there go my scissors. Okay, pull that up. And now in the next stitch over, I am taking the needle back down through those stitches. That will do. And pull that through. We're going to go up again. I'm going to stay in the same line of stitches this time, but go down a little below where I've come out. Because obviously if you go like straight back up in that spot, you will just slide the yarn straight back out. Right, so taking it up. There we go. And one more time should do it. So I'm going to go over a little bit and go back down in this stitch here. This sort of row of line of stitches, column of stitches. Yeah. Okay, all right, I'm going to do one more for good luck. I like to take my tail and a reasonable distance away from where I put it in. That way if it starts to come out, it's coming out like a long way from where you put it in. It's got even less chance of coming undone. And really, I have never had a hat come undone. Okay, so I just dropped my scissors, so obviously I'm not going to cut it, but you can cut it like right there, super close. You don't need to leave any hanging out at all because it's nice and securely in. And now I will show you how to sew in the tail from the yarn that we wove in, from the yarn that we changed earlier. So it's really much the same thing. Just thread that piece of yarn onto your needle. I like to fold the yarn over. I find it slips in more easily. There we are. Okay, so you will need to weave in both ends of the yarn. There'll be two. And because we crocheted over the top of it, in a way we've already gone one direction with the yarn. So we'll need to bring it back in the other direction and then go up and back again. So I like to take it down through this little tunnel of stitches here when I'm doing half double crochet. So down there, pull it through, and then back up the way we came from through the other side of the stitches. Having said not to split the yarn, I'm really splitting it, but I really don't think it makes that much of a difference. And then back down one more time, and we are done. And obviously, just cut that. I'll now show you how to do the top. Now, it's totally personal preference. You can leave this with a little hole in the middle, or you can close the hole up. The only difference when you are weaving the end in is really how tight you do it. If you're leaving the hole open, just don't pull it really tight and close it. If you're tightening it, do something like this. So do you see how there's sort of a little tunnel, I guess, made by the stitches? So to start with, because I want to close this hole up, I'm going to pull on this a bit, which tightens it to an extent, but see, there's still, you can see my finger through it, there's still plenty of gap there. So to start with, I'm going to pop my hook in the direction that the tail end is sort of heading. Take my hook up that way, pull it through. I'm going to pull it through really tight. And now that little gap has closed up really well. So now I need to secure it. So I want to go back in the direction I came from. So I've taken my thread forward a bit, popping the hook in there, going back, pull it through, rethread your needle if you're me. So I'd like to take it back in the other direction again. See, the gap is coming open a little bit. So I want to give it, oh no, it's not coming open a little bit, but I want to make it nice and strong. So I'm going to send it back this way and then back again. And now I'm just going to take my thread off. Oh, sorry. Go up this way a bit so that my tail is sitting away from the center of my hat. There we go. And that's plenty. So just snip that off, snip, nice and close, and you are all done. You've made it to the end of the tutorial. Well done. You should have your very own soft and simple slouchy to show for all that hard work. My beanie still has one thing that yours doesn't though, because I put a button on it. If you'd like to put a button on your beanie, pop your beanie on your head, figure out where you want the button to sit and mark the spot with a stitch marker. Then you just need to grab a little bit of leftover yarn and an embroidery needle and sew that button on. If you want a pair of soft and simple fingerless gloves or a cowl to match your new slouchy, check out my tutorials for those. You can actually make the fingerless gloves with the yarn that's left from a 100-gram ball of yarn if that's what you started your slouchy with. And you only need 2 balls of yarn all up to make the slouchy, the gloves and the cowl. If you enjoyed my tutorial, please click like, click subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye!